Good evening. It is 6:01. I'd like to call this special meeting of the Stratford Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Commission to order. We have one item tonight under old business, Inland Wetlands Watercourse application 2016-16, construct brewing facilities with associated infrastructure and parking in regulated wetlands and upland review areas. Site address 1526 Stratford Avenue, Assessor's Map 30.8, Block 20, Lot 5, applicant Two Roads Emeritus Company, LLC. I believe we've gone through everything on your application. You didn't let me finish. I was going to say, are there any questions from any of the commissioners? Yes. Mr. McCann.
Who's ready to come up and answer some questions?
I think you have to take it off the table.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Which is tabled. First, we need a motion to take it off the table.
I make a motion to take it off the table.
Second. All in favor? All right, we're off the table,
I second it.
and you're all set. You can proceed.
Gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having this special session, too. I wanted to make sure you knew we really appreciate it.
I have a couple questions in going through the plans. In your geotechnical report, your report, in the comments and conclusions, it talks about the fill, the miscellaneous fill that would be unsuitable for the foundations to be removed. And I believe the conclusions refer to the replacement of fill in the proposed footprint with compacted quality fill. That is still required.
Yes, required as part of the ELR. We had that soil remediated, and they're requiring that any soil that's excavated for the foundation would have to be taken out per the requirements, environmental requirements.
All right, so you're at a quality of fill that does not need any more excavation on the footprint. Am I right or wrong?
As far as the fill that's currently there is not suitable to put a building on top of it. But seeing how we have a big portion of it is basement, the engineer thinks that the soil below would be fine for it.
Okay, the top fill is unsuitable. So you're going to
for bearing a building without piles or something like that.
all right, so just to restate my question, so that is going to be removed in the future?
That will be removed. The majority of it will be removed.
Okay. Has anybody looked at what that fill is or what kind of quality? In other words, are there any hazardous materials in it?
No,
Are there old barrels? Are there old cars? Are there?
It's already been remediated.
Okay, and to that extent.
Yes.
Is this building going to have a basement?
It is going to have a basement,
Yes.
partial basement.
Partial basement? Because in the report, it also suggests that you're going to possibly need some sumps in the basement?
No, we've managed to keep it above the...
Okay, so there'll be no sumps at all?
there will be no sumps.
No discharge?
No district.
Okay, that's good. Your restoration plan, it's come to my attention from the administrator that you are going to later on present a management plan for the wetland restoration portion of the project. Are you going to have some sort of manager or an individual who's going to be in charge of carrying out the restoration? In other words, is there going to be a biologist, a geologist, or somebody who is going to be watching this to make sure it's done in the proper?
We were going to have a wetland engineer design the plan as far as replanting stuff and moving.
Okay.
Yeah, and what I'll do in the permit conditions is write out, I've done this for other permits before where we write out that it's required that the wetland ecologists check in with me at prescribed time periods to make sure that everything is going according to plan, that the vegetation is growing adequately, and then usually if there's a bond for the work being done. That bond won't be released until the restoration is complete. So that's another term that we could put in the permit to ensure that the restoration is completed to the conditions that we want.
Because normally when it's a rare occasion that we actually have had a wetland fill in the past decade or so. Times have changed. We normally look for some mitigation. Now it's come to my attention that you're prepared to present a conservation easement on this portion of the wetland?
Well, we're going to discuss it. We're going to discuss doing a conservation easement. And in just speaking with Brad a few minutes ago, they're hoping to put different plantings where they can have different fruit-bearing plants to use for their beer-making purposes.
Well, yeah, our plan is originally we have fruit-bearing plants on our regular property, like cherry trees, black currants, and we use those as part of the barrel aging production of certain beers. So I was thinking that it would be terrific if we could have a plan where we could put fruit-bearing plants within the wetlands area, and we have beehives on the property as well, which would be nice to have in the wetlands area as well. And so those are the things that I'd like to do in the wetlands. It's not critical because I could do it on the existing property, but it'd be nice to be able to do that in the wetlands area. And then to have a little grass walkway for private walking, not public, but private, just to observe what we're doing there with the beehives and fruit-bearing plants. So that is in the context of an easement. I'd like to be able to propose that we have that in the easement, that we can do those sort of things, so it'd be mutually beneficial.
And I believe since it's going to be used for pretty much educational purposes, having
Yeah.
the public in there, observing the wetland and seeing how it's used in the beer-making process as well, I think it's a beneficial use of the wetland itself.
All right, I would be much more comfortable if we had an opportunity of reviewing that at some point in time.
Sure, and I think that's totally fine. In the permit conditions, we can state that no restoration is to take place until the commission has approved the restoration plan.
We wouldn't even embark on such a project without making sure that it's approved and done properly. The most important thing for us is that these wetlands are going to be viewable from a second floor tasting room, and we want them to be beautiful and pristine wetlands, and it's in our benefit and in the environment's benefit as well.
No, I appreciate that, and that's fine.
Yeah, and again, this is another situation of, that site was, it was disgusting. It was
It's
in
a dump.
deplorable condition for years, so.
It's a dump right now. You look at the trash that's coming in from underneath the railroad tracks, you wouldn't believe it.
So again, it's a project that's going to really benefit the wetlands.
So we're going to have an opportunity of seeing these plans in the future.
I see
So
what
what is our scenario here? We're going to vote to approve the application, but not issue a permit.
I think we can issue the permit with one of the conditions
You
being
can't
that.
issue a conditional permit. That's beyond our ability.
May I say something? If it delays the project, I want to do as much as I can to keep the project going, and if the ideas that I'm putting forward here in terms of fruit bearing and that kind of stuff are going to delay it, I would much rather not delay it.
We could separate it into two permits, where we have the first permit where we just say that a restoration plan will come at a later date, and then we issue a separate permit for the restoration.
Yeah, I think that's what you're going to, sometimes
I think
when we have a
that's fine.
conditional thing, we have it in two stages, but if time is of the essence for them to go to the commission with a
I
permit.
think that's what we do. I think we issue this first permit, stating that the applicant will come back with a restoration plan in place, and another permit will be issued at that time to move forward with the restoration.
I think, yeah, that's,
So it'll be a two-stage process.
Right, so we'll issue a permit that will allow them to construct their facilities, not hold them up. And then
When they're
you'll
ready.
come back with a restoration plan that we will permit, because you can't do anything over there anyways,
Right.
in terms of this building. So that should be okay and not
Yeah.
hold you up too, correct?
That's great. And then if you want to discuss the whole concept of a conservation easement, is that the right? I'm pleased to discuss that with you as well. That'd be fine.
Well, I mean, the conservation easements don't necessarily preclude use of the property by walking or whatever. But here again, if it's going to require some sort of modification, intrusion of some sort, then, again, I think, from my perspective, I think it should come before the panel one more time.
Oh, I agree. I'm in agreement with that. So we'll do a two-stage permit process.
I'm completely comfortable with, with all the rest of it personally, but we can't, because we were talking about, getting the conservation restoration plan, but if we don't have it in hand, I don't think it's the way our regulations are set up that we can actually approve that in lieu of having that come in later. So I think, like Mr. Chairman, I think your suggestion is appropriate, that it has to come in 2 different separate applications. That would be my suggestion.
That way no one's held up.
That's fine.
Yeah, we have to give them the opportunity to at least...
Do you understand what we're saying? I'm sorry, I don't mean... we cannot legally say to somebody, we're going to give you a permit if you promise to do A, B, and C, which we don't know what it's going to be. That's, in our regulations, that's prohibited. And we would like to see some sort of program or plan for how you're going to restore the wetland as you've represented. Again, to your benefit, you want to have something that looks pleasant. So what we will probably do, I'm talking through you, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, we can approve the application and issue a permit on as presented with the exclusion of the restoration, which you can bring in. And I suppose we could hypothetically even waive, I don't want to go there, waive an application fee if
Yeah.
that's going to be a problem. And then come in with that, and we'll give you a review and approval on that. Is that something that you're...
Yeah, as long as that doesn't hold up the next meeting, which is the planning and zoning.
No. You will,
Yeah,
in most
yeah.
likelihood, I'm not going to speak for the other commissioners, in most likelihood, walk out that door tonight with an approval and then eventually a permit from the administrator.
Okay. Yeah.
That's why we're here
Right.
tonight at this date.
I'm absolutely fine with that, and
And that's why we want to move it along, and that's the way we can move it along, that way, so you can go before the other boards with a permit in hand. Okay?
Yep,
All right.
that
You don't
works.
look very happy about that, I don't know.
Oh, no, I'm listening, I'm concentrating and focusing and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
No, that's great.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so, any other questions?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the application
Second it.
as represented with the exclusion of the restoration.
So, to restate the motion before we second it, as I understand it.
John,
Make
second.
sure you guys understand it.
Motion?
We're going to approve this application with the exception of the wetlands restoration, which is going to come in as a separate application.
That's correct.
Okay. Second from,
I second the motion.
we have a motion, we have a second.
I second it.
Discussion?
He did it. No.
I did it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Okay.
Thank you. Smile on my face.
Now, we need another motion.
I made a motion adjourned.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? Favor? Meeting adjourned.
Thank you for coming in tonight, I really appreciate it.
How many beehives? How many beehives?
Don't forget, public hearing February 15th. Okay? I'll send out all the information ahead of time. Well, I mean, you have most of it.
Here you go, Tina.
Oh, thank you.